Hi, I didn't see you walk in. Sit down. My name is Mariya and I'll be a virtual bartender today here at the Marketing Speakeasy. You see, this is a show, I guess you could call it a podcast, where we take marketing leaders, CMOs, directors of marketing, VPs of marketing, all kinds of people that make decisions in the field, and we sit them down for a conversation that, virtual as it might be, it still has the most essential qualities of a really good conversation at a bar. The after hours feel, the real unfiltered insights, the laughs that were definitely not scripted and that happened because we are having a good time. We talk about the industry, we discuss the things that piss us off, and most importantly, we keep our promises that whenever you come to join us for a little show at the Marketing Speakeasy, we will deliver you with some marketing secrets, served with a twist. My guest today was a very special one. Her name is Natalie Marcotullio, and she is the head of growth and operations at Navattic, which is a company making an interactive demo platform, essentially helping people see software and actually experience it before they buy or decide if they even want to sign up for a demo, like an actual demo call. And Natalie is somebody that's been a great friend of mine for a while now. We met on LinkedIn. I think 2 years ago, we've seen each other at a bunch of conferences. We now live in the same city, and we just love to talk about marketing. So when I realized that I was doing a podcast, it felt like a no-brainer that Natalie should be one of the first people that I speak to, and I'm so glad I did. This conversation was delightful. I think it reflects Natalie herself. Natalie is a marketer that's really in there, deep in the field. She's been the solo marketer at companies, at SaaS startups twice now, and she thinks about everything included in marketing, from GTM strategy to positioning to messaging to full funnels to content, everything under the sun. She cares a lot, I think, about helping SaaS companies actually get a better buying experience and improve the process for all of us in B2B. And here's a fun fact that you might not know about Natalie. She learned to speak in England, so she used to have an English accent. You would never guess that. Try to guess it as you listen to her talk. I had no idea. So I'm excited to see if any of you pick up on any accent particularities that I might have missed. Otherwise, I hope you enjoy the show, and welcome to the Marketing Speakeasy. Would you mind introducing yourself and your career, right? Your career path so far, what you do now, in a way that your grandma would understand? Maybe not your particular grandma, but the platonic ideal of a grandma, right? Who doesn't know anything about any of the companies, any terms, right, in the industry, any marketing terms. How would you describe what you do?
Okay, so we've actually thought about this before. We have a little saying that we use. We kind of describe it as the way that you buy cars. We let you do that for software. So if you think about it, when you go to buy a car, you generally want to get in the car, you want to test it out, you want to do like a little ride with the person. You don't want to like watch a video or see pictures of someone else driving the car. You want to drive the car yourself. We let you do that same thing, but for software.
Do you have an equivalent of like a used car salesman?
No, the opposite. We eliminate the used car salesman. We let you go straight into the test drive. You don't have to talk to the terrible car salesman.
Ah, it's a self-service car purchase.
You can go take the car, drive it around, maybe not return it. No, that's not what we power.
So why does somebody need that for software, right? If I'm a grandma and I don't understand how people buy software, why do I care, right, that I can try it out instead of just seeing it somewhere else?
Yeah, I think the same with the car analogy, right? Like you want to see how it looks and feels for yourself. You want to get that feel of it, feel like you understand it fully. If you're just like watching a video of someone else driving a car, it's helpful, but it doesn't feel like you're actually in that moment or kind of playing around with it, explore how you want to explore.
Well, thank you. I hope all the grandmas listening know a fair bit about test driving cars.
I've taught you nothing about Navattic, but everything about what to do and not to do when buying a car.
You know what? What other marketing podcast would somebody get that on? I think this is very valuable information. What are you drinking today, Natalie?
So usually, as I mentioned, I go with wine, but I kind of wanted to go speakeasy, like hidden themed. So
Um,
I also happened to just make a big batch of chai tea. So I'm doing a spiked chai tea, which is better than I was expecting it to be. So maybe it could be your new go fall drink.
have you done it before, or is this the first time you tried to spike chai tea?
No, it was quite literally, I had a big teapot. I'm really into making tea right now
I
of
love
chai
it.
tea that I was like, oh shoot, this is going to go to waste. Because I was going to drink something else. I was going to try to make a cocktail. And then I was
Oh,
like, what if I just spike it? So it felt
why
very,
not?
again, very fall, felt very hidden. We could just be at, a pretend coffee shop that's really a speakeasy. It felt like it was in the vibe.
I love that. I love that. Have you ever had like an alcoholic pumpkin drink? Is that a thing? Like a pumpkin spice cocktail? Because everything is pumpkin spice these days. Coffee, tea, milk. I don't know what else I've seen. I think I've seen like a freaking seltzer water that's flavored that way. I'm sure somebody's made a cocktail out of that.
I'm trying to think if I have. I mean,
I
there
have
has to
not.
be.
There has to be. Perhaps that's the next mission. A chai pumpkin flavored spiked drink, maybe?
Maybe. I think
Maybe.
if we go to enough New York City bars, we will find one that has like a pumpkin spiked latte.
That might be our next mission, then we'll have to report back if we find anything.
It basically sells itself, like pumpkin spiked latte.
Oh my god. Okay, wait, that is so good. I
Stop
didn't
the
think of that.
podcast. We gotta go start.
There you go.
We
First
gotta go
business
for real.
idea.
Yep. Someone take it. If I don't see that on a menu tomorrow, I'm gonna be upset.
Me too, me too. I need to go to the nearby bar and everybody has to have it on their menu. Otherwise, what are they doing? They're behind. And I am being boring. I am drinking wine, mostly because my choices were either wine or this alcoholic kombucha that one of our friends bought about a month ago. She bought a whole pack. She had 2 sips of one can, and nobody's touched the rest of them ever again.
I feel like we all have the alcohol. Like I have currently in my alcohol cabinet 2 White Claws and 1 Surfside. And we all just have that alcohol that just like sits there forever because you
Yep.
like forget about it and that's kind of warm. And then you're like, I don't really want this now because it's been there forever. But just in the off chance someone really wants like a 2-month-old, Surfside, I can't throw it out. That's a waste. So I can relate to that.
So, here's a marketing question for you. What do you think someone should do if they work at a SaaS company and they realize that this is how their buyers think of their software? Like that can of White Claw or spiked kombucha or Bud Light or whatever it is that is sitting in that cupboard or in the back of the fridge that nobody's even looking at.
Okay, I got a good answer for this.
Go.
You gotta spice it up, rebrand it, obviously do a new website launch.
Oh.
I mean, I'm kind of joking, but kind of not there. My actual advice from the alcohol perspective was like, make it into some sort of mixed drink so they don't know that it's the old seltzer that's been sitting in the back. But in a marketing sense, it's kind of the same thing, right? Like repackage it, redesign it, resell it, claim it's a new category now, come up with a fancy category name. Not saying that's the best advice, but that's what most people I think would do.
I feel like that could work, right? Maybe do a partnership or something. I could also imagine that. Like launch a new integration with some tool that's already the fun, sexy thing everybody's talking about, right? Everybody suddenly has a Clay integration, for example. Not calling anybody out, but perhaps some of them were using the strategy.
I like that better. Yeah. Find some friends, make it into
Yeah.
a mixed drink. Don't just have it be on your own.
It's like the halo effect. Have you heard of that? Like when a bunch of people are in a group, when some of them are better looking, it makes the rest of them look better, right? Do the same for your marketing. Surround yourself with other companies and other products that already look better, and you just look better by association.
Okay, we're like joking about this, but this was like quite literally my year 2 of Navattic marketing strategy.
No
Basically,
way.
it was like, what companies are cool? Let's associate ourselves with them so we'll be cool by default. And like it kind of worked. So
It did? I guess it did, because Navattic is the cool one now.
now people want to mix with us. Now they want to they want our drink and their drink. I'm taking this analogy too far, but we joke. It's not a bad marketing strategy to be like, hey, I'm going to associate myself with people that other people respect and think are cool, and then they'll think we're cool.
What if you go to social listening and everybody's saying bad things about you, though? What do you do?
The rebrand.
Just go back to the drawing board, pretend it's not there.
Okay, I've actually unbrand, like I've had an unsuccessful, I'm not going to talk about the details, but I have had an unsuccessful product launch before, and we just slowly like unbranded, like we called that product something particular, and we slowly just unbranded it. Like we just stopped referring to it. And then like in 2 years, no one knew about that failed product launch or that product. And so we just kind of like slowly took it back. So I do think you can unbrand. It's maybe a little harder now that everything's like out there on social media so much, but like no one's paying that much attention to you.
That is true. Also, like the algorithms change, right? That SERP's going to change. The LinkedIn feed's going to change. If your new posts are about something else, everyone's going to forget all about it. Yeah. We had a bit of a potential PR scandal that we were dealing with earlier in the year. I'm not going to go into the details, but I was trying to figure out, do we need to respond to this? Do we need to do anything? There was like a really bad post about us. And almost everybody I talked to that's been in business for longer was like, ignore it. It's going to go away. I'm like, no way it's going to go away. Like it has like 500 reactions on LinkedIn. Everybody's commenting. I'm getting messages about this. No way it's going to go away. And they're like, it's about to be 4th of July. Just wait till after after the weekend and see what you think then. Like, don't make any decisions now. Like, okay, I can wait like 4 days, but no way this is going to go away. By the time everyone was back from 4th of July, gone. Nobody cared. Done. It's so quick. It's ridiculous.
I always try to remember that when there's maybe a bad review or something negative happens, like whenever there's any type of bad press. And sometimes you have to address it, but more times than not, just being like, you know what? We're not that interesting. It's going to be fun gossip for about 3 days. And then after that, they're going to move on to something else. So like just letting it go. And I struggle with that sometimes because I really...
It's hard.
Well, I also I think one thing you don't talk about sometimes when this whole become the face of your company, post on LinkedIn about it, all this stuff. Sometimes I'm like, oh no, I'm Natalie from Navattic. So if someone's saying something negative about Navattic, they don't like me. And that's not true. But I think that's sometimes this side of posting for your company that people don't talk about.
Oh yeah, I'm sure. And that must be really weird, right? As an in-house person too. Because for me, of course, people mix me up with my company. I'm the founder, right? I'm the CEO. So of course, I'm kind of the face. But when you're the face and it's not even the company you started, that must feel strange.
It does at times. And I know that we're different entities and things, but I think when people talk about identifying too much with their work, this has not helped me sometimes create that healthy balance of identifying with my work or getting value off my work. Because when someone says something nice about Navattic marketing, I'm like, that's awesome. But I'm also a team of two. When someone says something bad, it's like, well, I know exactly who they're calling out there because there's two of us. So I don't think I've talked about marketing at all. And just like a typical bartender, I've told you all of my emotional problems. So this podcast is doing exactly what it's supposed to.
That is exactly what we're supposed to be doing. I'm glad we're getting into it so quickly. I thought I'd have to warm us up more, but we just went straight to it. I love it. This is making me think about differentiation is such a double-edged sword, I feel. Right? Because on one hand, you want it, right? Because you want the kind of brand awareness, right? You want the recognition of the brand, associations with your product and solution. But on the other hand, when you're not too differentiated, sometimes that can also be a benefit, right? Because it's kind of the brand equivalent of you're not that important. People don't think about you that much, right? You both want people to think about you more, so they remember, recommend, buy, whatever, yada, yada, yada. But also maybe not too much, because then you can get away with mistakes, maybe letting something slide. It's interesting.
I think about this all the time from a sense of, when talk about you need to take a stake in your marketing. I've gotten that advice a few times where it's Drift was anti-forums, HubSpot was anti-outbound. So you have to be something that you're anti, and you have to make a claim. And I do agree, that creates a lasting image in people's minds. It's really easy to associate, does make your brand stand out more. It does all those things, but it also makes you inherently against something. So you're gonna have to fight against something. And people who are pro that thing aren't gonna like that. And it doesn't leave as much room for nuance. And I, in general, as a person, I'm just kind of more nuanced. I don't really believe in definitives. I'm usually someone who likes a little more middle ground. So I've had a really hard time with that, of being like, yes, let's be definitively anti this thing, because I think everything is kind of nuanced, and it's hard to say 100% of the time this thing is wrong and this thing is right.
Yeah, it's hard. And I feel like I like all of these frameworks that are like, introduce conflict, have a villain, right? I think those are great, right? Taking things from storytelling, raising the emotional stakes, all of that. It does make for better marketing. But also there is a point at which it becomes too simplistic, right? You don't want it to turn into a political debate kind of thing, right? Where it's like, we're either the Democrats or the Republicans. We're either Team Harris or Team Trump, and we hate the other side no matter what they do, right? You don't want that. That's not helpful for anybody. But yeah, how do you strike the balance?
I think it's having an informed opinion when you have data or use case that specifically backs it up. Mm-hmm. So for example, like we know for certain use cases, like if you want to show your product more on your website, I'm going to use Navattic. Sorry, I'm not trying to pitch. It's just what I know.
You're good.
Like if you want to, if you are struggling with prospects saying to you, hey, I don't know what your product does, like putting some type of demo on your website might be helpful. And then we can give you best practices around, how long to make it, what to include, all that. And we have data that shows putting a demo might be more engaging than a video. So like when you are a good fit for our solution, I'm happy to be opinionated. But what I'm not going to do is like, I've had people who've said to me before, hey, I think interactive demos are really cool. Our demo or our product is super ugly. It's like behind the scenes stuff. I've had multiple people say this to me.
I have never thought of that as an objection for interactive demos. Oh my God, that makes so much sense though.
and yes, we can edit it and make it look better. Mm-hmm. But at the end of the day, if like you need to go work on your UI first, you might need to work on your UI first. I can't sit around and say, put up a really ugly demo versus maybe just work on that internally first. So I think that's where I try to strike a balance. Like when I have the data and background to know like, yes, this will be a good fit and my opinion will help you, I'm happy to help. But when there's more nuance or it's like, no, in this case, we might not actually be a good fit. And maybe you should talk to your product team about making your product less ugly. But I don't know, if you're still selling it and it's ugly, maybe who cares? I think like Bloomberg is really ugly and they're doing great. So what do I know?
They are. I mean, the amount of legal software I've seen the UI off, right? Because my husband, Jack, is a lawyer. And I just see like the interfaces. He sometimes shows me just what those products look like, right? Without any info, just like the main interface. And they're so ugly. Oh my God. All of them look like they're like meant to be viewed on one of those computers where the monitor is about this thick.
Yep.
Like, it seems like it was designed for 280p at best, maybe. And now that it's at 4K, it don't look so good.
See, that might be a case where I'm like, maybe, you should make that a little prettier first before building a demo. Yeah, I remember the first time someone said that to me, and I was like, you know what? I don't have a way to handle that objection. I don't have anything to say to that. Like, sometimes you get something and you're like, I'm stumped. I'm sorry, your product's ugly.
Yeah, I get that. For us, it's if they can't figure out sales, right? Because like we do services. So we often actually look for that. It's like, do you already have product market fit? If your team has good fit leads, can they sell it? Can they convert, right? Like the things we want to hear is, yeah, once people get to our sales, like it's just fine. It's super easy to convert them. We just need more people coming in that are the right kinds of people, right? That's like the perfect spot where we can help and do a bunch of things. But when they're like, well, we don't actually know how to sell this. We're not sure if we're getting the right people. We have no idea. It's like, okay, yeah, you should go somewhere else. I'm sorry. I don't think either of us would be happy here if you spent your money.
Yeah, I think ultimately it's just like knowing your ICP, like most things in marketing. Just like know who you want to sell to and whether or not it's a good fit for them. And then if it is, it will usually work out.
But also know who you don't want to sell to.
Yeah.
Right? It's kind of like, I guess, taking this whole speakeasy bar theme into account. It's kind of like, going to a bar to find a date, right? Or to like pick somebody up. You want to know who you're interested in, if you are in anybody, and who you don't want to talk to, right? You don't want to start going about and just talking to every single person, be like, do you want to go home with me? Like, what? That's not a good way to do it.
Oh God, that's terrifying. Don't do that in New York.
Oh my God, anywhere, just don't.
Or anywhere, don't do that anywhere, but.
Yeah. And I honestly, I've had this metaphor in my head for like years now that I feel like so much bad marketing is essentially like terrible pickup artists, right? They're kind of like, they have these scripts that they've designed. They think that a personal interaction is basically this perfect cheat code, right? We have a PS5 that we got recently, and we were playing GTA San Andreas, which is one of these old childhood games. So, of course, we looked up cheat codes like immediately. And the way cheat codes work on the PS5 is you press like up, down, all of these buttons in this exact sequence. And I feel like the attitude that pickup artists have, as well as a lot of demand generation people that I think are on the wrong track, is if you say the right things and you have the right engagement sequence and you send enough emails and enough touch points in these places, it's going to like open up this code that suddenly they want to talk to you. What?
It's funny when you said that analogy, my mind more went to like, when you pitch someone but don't actually listen to them first, and that often means like a bad pickup line is when someone just like talks to you and then just talks about why they're great. Or like, I feel like the classic example of a bad first date is you go and then they ask you no questions.
It's just talk about themselves.
And it's kind of the same with like a bad pitch. If it's like just about you or this company, you're not asking any questions or making it about me at all.
Yeah. And I feel like that's the whole thing of like actually being curious about who are you marketing to, who are you selling to, and then listening, right? You can't say we're super customer focused or we're super audience focused and then all of your pitches sound the same. I don't believe you that you're actually customer focused if you don't adjust what you say based on what you hear, you're not listening. That's just not how this works. Like, no, you can't have an interaction where one of you has a pre-scripted like NPC kind of vibe.
I think an NPC is such a good way to put it.
Right? I feel like so many marketers turn into NPCs and it's like, why are you doing this to yourself?
But I think to give the NPC a little defense, because I was once a marketer who did the same exact thing. Mm-hmm. And I think a lot of it comes from we don't give ourselves enough time as marketers to really learn. I know everyone's like, talk to the customer. Not just that, but like literally learn the industry. So my first job, I was selling outside sales software. I didn't know anything about outside salespeople. It was no one I had interacted with before. And so I was given like these value props. And I would use them in our marketing all the time because I didn't actually understand the buyer. I didn't understand what they were going through. And eventually I learned more and could write better messaging. But I think we don't give people enough enablement or time or just like I feel like most of my messaging with Navattic was like bad for the first year because I didn't fully understand until I really met people and talked to them. So I think that like NPC-ness comes from a lack of understanding.
For sure. And feeling like that's the right way to do things, right? Because it's the same thing with pickup artists. Most people that become, somebody that practices this aren't actually terrible people. They just have trouble, talking to the other gender, right? Or whoever they're interested in. And they don't know any better. So, right, they look up advice. How do I get a date? And that's the stuff that shows up. And then they tell you, yeah, just do this. And it sounds easy. It's like, okay, I could do this. I could memorize it. It's less scary than actually opening yourself up to serendipity and not knowing what happens. Have you seen, do you know who Nathan Fielder is?
Yeah.
Do you know his show? I think it's called The Rehearsal, the new one.
Oh, I don't know his new show. I know the old one.
Okay. So the new one, The Rehearsal, I think about it as a metaphor all the time. I've seen like 2 episodes. I couldn't bear to watch the rest because it was so cringe. Oh, no. But it struck me. Basically, the whole premise there is he like takes people who are about to have an important conversation and he helps them rehearse exactly how it would go. So he puts them in that exact environment and he acts as the other person and he makes them rehearse every line until they feel like it's perfect.
I'm already picturing it in my head. I'm picturing someone proposing to him in the most awkward way.
Yep.
I'm picturing like firing someone. Oh my God. Because I've just seen his other stuff and it's always cringe is the only way to put it.
Yeah, he like goes to like the exact apartment he's gonna have the conversation in and like figures out where he's gonna stand, where he's gonna sit, where he's gonna walk.
Oh my God. I know what I'm doing tonight. I'm watching this.
You should. And think about marketing because sincerely, the amount of people on like LinkedIn especially, right? All of these gurus that are like, oh, this is how you need to get customers that basically act like that. It's just no. Do you not see what you're doing? I feel like so much of it is people don't trust their intuition. and they're not taught to trust their intuition or their gut, right? Because most of us know how to talk to people. Most of us understand what gets attention, like at a core level, really, if we really think about it. But when we're doing our marketing work, it's, as you've said, right? You get the list of value props, right? You get this persona that you might not question. You get this like product description. That's all you're using, right?
Yeah, I think inherently also it's like asking questions and listening is almost admitting you don't know. Like asking someone a question if someone tells you something and you're like, oh, can you actually dig into that more? Why is that? That it takes a certain level of like just humility to be like, oh, I don't know that and you know more than me versus I find myself guilty of this at conferences all the time. I know instead of just pitching someone on Navattic, I should ask them, what do you do? What is your role? And so often someone comes up to my booth and it's like, can you tell me more about Navattic? And I'm like, yes, I can. Navattic is an interactive demo software.
You launch into it.
Like, I got it. I know what Navattic is. Of course I know what Navattic is.
I got it. Yeah.
Embarrassing part is by the end of the day, I can't even do a good pitch because I'm so tired. I'm like, I don't know, we sell cars.
It's like a car. You just get to drive it, feel the leather. What's the leather in software, Nat? I don't know.
I know there's no leather, but it's so tempting. Like our natural reaction is someone asks us a question, we want to give them a smart answer, but the way smarter thing to do is to go back with a question or inquire, like, why are you asking that? Or how does this apply to you? So I totally get, like, while we're making fun of it, I also have been guilty of it and know that
Me too.
Like, it's so our gut reaction. Like, we just want to be smart. We just want to get an A. Want the teacher to be like, that was a good response. Like, we're not taught in school, too, also to ask questions to questions. We're taught to answer them.
All right. Well, in the spirit of embracing being silly and, not knowing the answer, I have a game I'd like us to play.
I'm excited.
All right. So this one, the first one I want us to do, is called Buzzword Bingo. All right, so essentially what we're doing is I have this cocktail shaker, right? Because I'm a bartender, and there's a bunch of pieces of paper in here. And each piece of paper has on it a buzzword that is common in marketing, in SaaS, and just the work that we do. And what we're going to do is I'm going to pull a couple of these out, and I want you to try to then answer a question that I'm going to ask you using as many of these words as possible without it feeling off, right? And you get a point for every single word that you're going to use. We're going to count your points in the edit, so I won't know immediately, but we're going to count it, and we're probably going to have a counter on the screen, right?
Can I have a clarification? Is by feeling off just mean like it has to make logical sense? Like
like it shouldn't feel like you're just trying to squeeze them in, right? Like it should feel like it actually makes sense in the sentence and in the context. Yeah.
I got it. Okay.
So you get a little bit of participation here. How many buzzwords would you like to do?
5.
I was thinking 5. Perfect. Okay. If you said 3 or something, I would have accommodated you. All right, let's go. Maybe, do you want to have a notepad or something so you can write them down?
Yeah, I'll put it on my phone.
Okay. All right. Wait. I should shake it first.
This would be like a fun, just like game, like an actual game.
Right? Yeah. So, I shake this. I can hear them shaking. All right. Ta-ta-ta. Number 1, optimize.
Good one.
Number 2, benchmark.
Perfect. Gotta optimize those benchmarks.
Number 3, synergy. It's the very first one I wrote, so I kind of love that it came out. Automation.
Okay.
And one more. Insights.
Got it.
All right. Now I'm going to ask you a question. And the annoying part that I'm going to do is this question is not going to be about marketing.
Okay.
So, describe to me your ideal date.
Okay. On my ideal date, what I'm really optimizing for is for a connection or some type of synergy between the two of us. I often get that by, chatting with them a little bit, asking questions, trying to get insights about their day-to-day, what they like, what they prioritize. I have been on a few dates at this point, so I do tend to benchmark them against all the other dates that I've been on. And then, if the date doesn't go well, luckily I do have a standard template. Some might say like an automated text that I send out that just explains why it didn't go well.
All right. Well, to get back into the actual conversation, one of the topics I really wanted us to talk about here is something that you and I talk about a fair bit. And I feel like this kind of game actually got us towards some of this, which is the whole topic of like emotions, right? When it comes to marketing, when it comes to doing marketing work. I feel like when we talk about emotions and marketing, the most common way is like, what is the emotion you're trying to get from your buyer? How does the buyer feel? How does the audience feel? But the side that's kind of hidden is how do you feel as the marketer, right? Because the marketer has emotions too. As you were saying earlier, right? Being the face of the company, getting bad feedback doesn't feel so good, right? What are your kind of thoughts on this or a viewpoint? Do emotions even have a place to be discussed on a marketing podcast?
Oh, yes. I think they have a place to be discussed everywhere because they're how we function as humans. I think I like to really use emotions for figuring out like motivations. I think that is so important in a business sense because we can pretend that we're all driven purely by business. But at the end of the day, even if you're like, well, my motivation is to make a bunch of money, my emotion behind it is probably like, I have a family at home and I really want my kid to go to a good college because that's important to me. Like, there is always an emotion behind a motivation. And until you figure out that emotion, it's usually pretty hard to connect and understand. Like, I think a good example in a very B2B sense, right? And I've given this before is I think every marketer's had to deal with like, or B2B marketer, it's like, oh, our rankings dropped on G2. And practically you're like, well, does G2 matter that much? It's not even a high lead signal or channel for us. We don't get a lot of leads from it. Like, so I don't think I care about G2. But your founder might be stressing because what if investors are looking at G2? And, you know, what if that's a negative reflection of, in their eyes, to the investors and they're trying to raise more money and they're stressed because they're feeling insecure about how investors feel about them or something. So if you're just a marketer looking at it very practically, you're like, well, I'm not going to invest in it. But if you realize the emotion going behind the scenes of your CEO or founder or CMO, and that's really important to them, well, yeah, you maybe should prioritize that. So I don't know if I fully answered your question, but
I think you did, because I think one aspect of this that you're touching on is this whole concept of like managing up as well, right? This is something people talk about a lot. And I think in marketing, it's a pretty hot topic because there's this whole term, right, people throw around, or phrase, I guess, of work for a CEO that gets marketing, right, or whatever, which I don't agree with. But I think what it gets across is feeling this kind of emotional alignment, right? That you're motivated in the same way, that you see things the same way. And it is essential, right? The reason that is something people point out is they've had too many examples of a boss, a CEO, CMO, whatever, that didn't actually resonate with them, was motivated by the different things, right? And if you were talking about it purely in terms of numbers, ROI, you know, business cases, you might have missed that, right? And then you feel gypped, right? When they start disagreeing, when maybe they let you go or they cut your budget, right?
yeah, I think it's really just hard to fully understand the motivations or reason behind something until you've dug into the why or what they care about, or ultimately what they care about as a CEO, right? Like if you know their why, and this goes both ways. I am a big believer of like, know your employees' why too. Yeah. Because you'll probably also motivate them much better, understand what's going to excite them versus not excite them. I think about this a lot with job interviews too. I really don't like how I feel like we see job interviews like only the interviewer is the one with control in this situation. When like a job interview, again, going back to like the date analogy, it's seeing if you have those synergies together. Sorry, I had to bring the word back. Do I get an extra point for that?
We will leave that up to the editor. Let's see if they add up your tally. We'll find out.
The listener's going to be like, I'm logging off now because Natalie's going to say synergy 5 more times if she
At least.
I will not say it again. But back to my point, I think really what you're trying to do in an interview is figuring out what we're trying to accomplish at this company. Is this the thing that you are inherently motivated by or also are trying to achieve in your career? And you're not going to get that unless you figure out that person's why.
Mm-hmm. How do you know that you got to the real why, though? Right? Because people will give you one reason, and usually the first reason they give you is the one that sounds the most logical, the one that's going to be backed up by data, the one that sounds like the most businessy business thing they could business, right? So how do you know if it's the right why, and how do you push somebody to actually share it?
The right why, I think it ties back to emotion. It's probably going to sound emotional, which I don't like that concept of emotional in general. But if the real why is stress, you'll probably really hear that stress or intensity of their tone. If the real anger or the why is, they love their children so much and they just want to give them a better future, you're going to hear a little bit of that softness. Like it probably isn't going to be as direct. I think to get someone there, just kind of everything we've been saying, just like asking them more questions. I know that sounds very simple and some people don't like it and are going to cut you off. This does not work for everyone. But sometimes it's just like, okay, I understand you're stressed about G2, but it's explaining your why too. It's like, in my perspective, I'm really busy right now and I'm working this channel that we've seen given us a lot of success. And I'm not seeing, and again, like stats and qualitative data help back that up. It's like, I'm not seeing as many positive signals from G2 or leads coming from it. Do you mind just explaining a little more why, even though this isn't a big lead channel for us, this is really stressful for you? Like make sure they can't just give the same answer and explain why your perspective as well.
I actually do have another jargon-related game for us that the shaker is going to come back for. So I think this might be a good time to do it. Basically, I have the same shaker full of buzzwords, so we're not going to have the same ones. Now, I'm going to give you a couple. I'd say let's do 3. I'm going to tell you one, and I need you to explain it in kind of the simplest non-marketing terms possible. So I guess let's consider the grandma again from the beginning. All right. Number 1, buy-in.
When I want to get you to do something that you don't want to do, so I try to use like fancy stats or quotes from people that you think are important to try to slowly convince you to do the thing that I want you to do.
What if it's something that's not good for me?
That is why I get fancy stats from people you admire more than yourself, so that you believe them and say, okay, I'm still in, even if I doubt it. I trust that person, that marketing guru.
I like that. I like that very much. All right. I think you pass. Next one. Let's see. Okay, I'm going to dig in. Let's see what I dig up. KPI.
A number that is really important to the company, or a goal, a thing we're trying to do. It's really important for the company, that everyone who's important at the company has said, yes, this is the thing we're going to focus on, so that when someone randomly comes in from another department and says, let's work on this thing, I can say, but does it relate back to that number we all agreed on? And if it doesn't relate back to that number we all agreed on, I'm not going to do it.
Okay, so you need to make sure you have enough synergy to get enough buy-in.
Everyone needs to be bought into the KPI.
Yeah, you need to optimize the synergy acquisition process to acquire enough buy-in to have your KPI. I don't like when I speak like this.
It's kind of fun, though, to try to do it.
I know. Last one. Incentivize.
I want to use the same definition as buy-in, but I'm trying to do it a little differently.
Uh-huh.
I want you to do something that is maybe a little difficult or requires a little more work from you to do. So rather than just asking you to do it in the way I normally would, I'm going to give you a little gift or a special reason, maybe a limited time, a reason that only exists for a certain amount of time, so that you do it when I want you to, even if you don't necessarily want to do it right now.
Yeah, you've got to put the pressure on them, right? Up the stakes. Do you ever feel icky about being a marketer?
No, but I think you have to market something that you don't think is icky. That's kind of the solution to it.
Mm-hmm. How so?
Like I don't think any software is saving lives. Sorry. Maybe some are.
Yeah, maybe.
Good for you if your software is saving lives. The whole
I feel like somebody out there working in healthcare is like really angry at us right now.
You might be. So good for you. You actually might be saving lives. Let's say besides healthcare tech, most software is not saving lives. I feel like the trope of like Silicon Valley is like, we're going to save the world, change the world. But do you believe that the software is making that person's day-to-day better? And then if their day-to-day is better, does that mean that they can get a raise that they want, or they can spend more time with their family? I think almost any software, you can maybe argue for that. So it can be a little bit of a slippery slope. But also think about it from a sense of like, do I think this company is trying to do generally good? I'm not saying that the company has to be donating all of its profits, but like, do I think our company is ultimately trying to help our customers versus just extract money from them? Obviously, we need our customers to pay. But like at the end of the day, are we building something to help them or just to try to like trick them into giving us money? I think that's kind of a way to tell if you're marketing something icky or not.
Yeah, I went to the library yesterday. I was returning the books I had and got some new ones because I can never go to the library without checking out more books. And one of the ones I got, it's called Selling the Dream. I haven't read it yet. I like just got it. But it's about MLMs, multi-level marketing schemes. And I love learning about those. Like it's like one of my side hobby interests. Like I like cults and I like MLMs. I just adore them, like learning about them because I find them so fascinating. Because I feel like what they do is it's the dark side of what you and I do, right? MLMs, they're taking a lot of the same methods that we develop. They take a lot of the same tactics, a lot of the same approaches, even, verbiage and appearance of it, but they spin it for something that's actually not worthwhile, that's actually scamming people, right? And I feel like exploring that kind of other frontier of it, right? Where does it go wrong? Tells us a lot more about what are we doing that's right and how do we make sure we do things the right way.
And in a weird way, I actually think MLMs are usually really good at the emotional side of marketing. Like,
yeah,
in a scary way, we can learn a little bit from them because they are figuring out someone's like deepest insecurity or fear or dream and marketing to it. Like that's often how MLMs get you is because they go after something so deep and core that even though there's so many signals in your head being like, I don't know about this, you're like, oh no, I do want that. So not saying we should learn from MLMs, but it is just interesting how in theory you could argue it's one of the most successful marketing because you are truly selling nothing.
Yeah, because if you can sell nothing, of course you can sell something.
Yeah, something that's actually good. Like sometimes I'm like, am I actually a good marketer or is just Navattic a good product? I don't know. It makes it a lot easier when you have a decent product to market.
It helps. This is also why we pick on customers who can actually sell their product, right? Because we're not going to bother. If your product's not good, I don't think we want to try. Yeah, it doesn't help anybody, right? If you have really good marketing on a crappy product, that's how you get this. Right? People being lied to, people feeling disappointed, and these power structures that are just not great for anybody. I often feel like these kinds of things are worth exploring because it's almost like stress testing, right? Like in engineering or something where you're like putting something under as much pressure as it can handle to see what is it that it can handle, how does it react in these like kind of crisis situations or extreme circumstances. So with marketing techniques, it's how does this work? Does it work if you're not selling anything of value, right? I feel like that's a stress test.
I always feel like it's important to kind of look at, to your point, like the evil side of what you do, because I don't often think many companies are like, look, we're going to be evil now. Like, I don't think anyone really makes that decision. What I really like about, because I also love like listening or reading about like scams and MLMs. I like seeing how someone goes from like, oh, I'm trying to make money to like the slow things that get them to almost, I don't want to say evil. I don't think anyone's evil, but to doing something that hurts others. So, because that happens all the time in businesses, right? Like we build a product to help an audience and it's great. And then investors come in and they're like, well, we need to raise ACV. So you're like, okay, I got to start upselling. So I got to start giving my customers less. And then I got to think about ways to make sure they pay me more. And then okay, I need to make sure, oh no, I still need to be paying more. Like you just see how these little pressures and outside things and little step. There's like not to get too deep, there's like a philosophical term with a window. Do you know what I'm talking about?
No.
Oh God, I'm going to butcher this. And anyone who knows philosophy is going to be like, Natalie, that was so bad. So bear with me.
Let's do it.
It's this concept of just like, you can kind of keep just like pushing, like every time you accept something that's outside, in this case of like your moral standards, you can sort of just like keep pushing and pushing slowly, and suddenly like, I guess the concept that there's an entire window. Mm-hmm. I hope this podcast is a fact check. Like someone please fact check me on this.
Editors, please. Most likely I'm going to be the fact checker on this, so you're going to get an alternate ego, Mariya. That's like, no, Natalie should have said that.
Natalie made up a philosophy term on this podcast?
I mean, maybe we're philosophers. Who knows? It's fine.
It's more just this concept of like every time you go outside your moral window, it keeps getting a little bigger, and it's really hard to go back. Like you can't make the window smaller. I don't even know if the metaphor is a window, but I think anyone can understand what I'm saying.
I get what you're saying. I like that. Because the thing I usually think of is the boiling frog, right? Like slowly boiling a frog so it doesn't notice that the water is heating up. But I kind of like that, this sense of like once you cross that boundary, it's really hard to go back. Because I feel like with the boiling frog, it's like very unidirectional, right? Nobody considers what if you started turning down the temperature. It feels very deterministic, right? It's like, this is just, you're doomed, this is it. Versus actually considering what does it look like and how do you still make good choices when your window has been maybe expanded too much.
Yeah, like can you go back? Can you make it smaller? And that's how the natural reaction is, like you don't notice when it's getting slightly bigger.
No,
because
of course not.
You have to, and it's also because going back to what we were talking about before, if you just hear what other people did, you just hear these successful marketing gurus or these successful like founder gurus. If you can't tell, I really hate like hustle founder culture because
Me too.
then people just like sprout this nonsense of, oh, you know, you need to be doing this, this, and this to raise as much money. And then usually that doesn't, no one talks about like, are we actually being good to our customers? Is anyone happy here? Like, yes, we just created this really successful business. Besides the person who just made a bunch of money, is anyone happy at the business? Does anyone have work-life balance?
Yeah, there's that. And also, I feel like we can even get smaller with the same dynamic of like marketing passing things on to sales or like product/delivery, where you can have everything looks good in your marketing universe, where you've hacked all of these things together to get as many leads as possible, to get as much traffic as possible. But if the methods you're using are not particularly great for one reason or another, that might screw over other people at your company, right? Your sales team might now be flooded with terrible prospects that are wasting their time, who are not showing up to demo calls, right, or discovery calls, who are, you know, starting the product and then canceling on it, or, you know, wasting the support team's time, right? And everybody's time down the line is now wasted, and everybody's paying the price for the fact that you optimized a little too hard.
Yeah, like when you're only, and I think it ultimately comes down to like how you're incentivized, KPIs. But if your only goal is to like just focus on your department, I think that can be kind of unhealthy. And it's hard because you can't have a goal that multiple departments own. You do need a clear owner. But for example, I'm gonna actually make this tactical, bring it back to business.
Yes.
But one thing I hear about all the time with an ABM strategy is like, how do you get sales and marketing to align? And this might be so simplistic, but I was like, okay, so my OKR for this quarter, rather than being, I need this much marketing sourced from these target accounts, is percentage of pipeline that's from these target accounts, but it doesn't matter if it comes from inbound, outbound. Because then suddenly, like, I don't care if my outbound team books it. That's great. I'm encouraging them. I'm helping them out because I still get credited and they still get credited. Like, I think we're so often try to figure out like what department is most successful or bringing the most leads or doing the best, because we need to make sure that there's no wasted spend at all, that goals can never be shared in some way. But oftentimes the reality is like you need it to be somewhat shared. You need multiple departments to be working on it. And I just keep thinking, I'm like, am I making it oversimplistic, or is it really just that easy that it could just be percentage of pipeline?
The simplest things are the hardest, is what I find usually. Like the simpler it is, the harder it is to do. Right? Because like you have the temptation to consider everything else. You're like, well, this can't be it, right? And then you get into your own head, and then the politics start playing. And yeah, often the solution is simplify. And that just opens up doors, right? Because then you're not cluttered with all of these sub-KPIs that somebody devised that are so removed you don't even remember what it's there for. Like, because that happens way too easily. We are basically done with time, but I did have one more game. Would you be interested in trying one more?
You know it.
Yes. Okay. All right. So this one is called Brand Mashup. So essentially, I have two brands that kind of don't make sense together. And I want you to take maybe a minute or two, you can pick, to think about a campaign that would blend the two. Right? Like what would be one way that the two of them could collaborate on an offering, and how would they market it? Okay. So this is purposefully meant to be kind of silly.
Okay, I'm ready.
Ready? Okay. The companies are Zoom and Peloton.
Okay.
You know enough about both of them, I assume.
Yes.
Cool. You can take a minute. I'm going to set a timer. Do you want a minute or 2 minutes?
I actually got it.
Oh, okay. All right. I was going to give you time.
Okay.
Go for it. Pitch me.
So, have you been on a meeting with a coworker who is on an annoying walking pad? We've all seen those videos of your coworker who's on a walking pad. They're bopping up and down. They're causing a distraction. They're sweaty. You know what's easier than walking? Biking. Definitely easier than walking. And it's stable. Our Peloton bikes are mounted down. They are sturdy. They're not like a flimsy walking pad going everywhere. And with our new Zoom integration, you can put your Zoom meetings right on the Peloton little table. So you can be biking away, but it looks like you're sitting too. Again, unlike a walking pad where it's clear you're standing, you're walking, you're sitting on a bike. No one has to see the bike. You're more stable. You got your Zoom right there. You can be taking meetings, and you have the little bike, handles. You can put your notepad there. You can still be taking notes and biking. So ditch the walking pad. Go to Peloton.
Why does that make sense?
Yeah,
I'm mad at how much sense that makes. That was too fast. How did you? Did you know? Did you read my note? Watch 2 years from now, we just see this Peloton Zoom integration. They watched the podcast.
That was
know
us.
Where this came from. This was us. Yeah.
Trademark,
exactly. Trademark.
Works.
Zoom Peloton. We're taking these two trademarks, but their combination is now ours.
And you know what you should drink on your Zoom Peloton? Your pumpkin spiked latte.
No! Get drunk on a Zoom Peloton for the best meetings you could ever have. Cheers.
Hey, I think that's a good way to summarize the podcast.
I would like to clarify that Kalina Marketing does not endorse drinking in all of your meetings when your colleagues might not be aware or consent to it. I loved talking to Natalie today, and I genuinely think that this is a conversation that so many marketers should be listening to. You can find links to get more of Natalie if you've enjoyed her here in our show's description, wherever you're listening or watching us. If it's on YouTube, it's in the video description. If it's on a podcast platform, it's somewhere in the podcast episode information. But you can find Natalie on LinkedIn, where she's pretty active. You can find her on Navattic.com, where she leads all of their marketing. And you can also find her on, honestly, a lot of podcasts. She even has a podcast that also has a drinking and marketing theme called Revenue on the Rocks. Check her out, see the links, and tell her you found her here. Cheers.
In the shadows, brilliance glows. Low lights, bright ideas flow. Marketing's minds unwind in the speakeasy's glow. Spilling secrets, spilling drinks. Legends meet where wisdom sinks. Vintage vibes with modern flair. Strategies beyond compare. Sipping wisdom, sharing tales. Marketing's past and future sales. Unfiltered conversations thrive in this speakeasy jive. Unlocking stories, secrets soar. Marketing insights to explore. A toast to past and future dreams in a lounge where brilliance beams.